There are moments in our lives when people suddenly leave, relationships fall apart, or friendships that once felt unbreakable begin to drift and dissolve. And in those moments, we often ask God, why? We feel confused, hurt, abandoned. But what if I told you that sometimes the people who walk out of your life are actually being removed by God? Not to punish you, but to protect you. You see, God has a purpose for your life. A holy, eternal purpose. And when God begins to shape and guide your steps, He also begins to adjust your surroundings. Not everyone can go where God is taking you. Not everyone who started with you is meant to stay with you. Some people may be distractions. Others may be leading you away from His plan, even without meaning to. And so, in His great mercy and wisdom, God sometimes steps in and says, this person cannot stay. And when God called Abraham, He said, leave your country, your people, and your father's household, and go to the land I will show you. That wasn't just a call to go. It was a call to leave. God was saying, Abraham, in order to fulfill my promise in you, I need to separate you from some things and some people. Some of you are asking God to reveal His purpose for your life. But maybe the better question is, are you willing to lose the people who are standing in the way of that purpose? God sees what you and I cannot see. We look at the outside. God sees the heart. We see the now. God sees the next 5 years, 10 eternity, and sometimes the very people you trust the most, the ones you rely on for strength, are not equipped to carry you through your next season. God knows that. He knows the conversations that happen behind closed doors. He knows the jealousy, the compromise, the spiritual drift. And so, out of love, He removes them, not to harm you, but to protect the mission He's placed inside you. Imagine you're on a ship headed toward your God-given destination. But below deck, there's a small leak caused by a person you've allowed into your life. You don't see the leak yet. You're laughing with this person, doing life with them. But that leak, if left unchecked, will eventually sink the ship. So God in His mercy throws the leak overboard, and you cry out, Lord, why did you take them from me? But God whispers back, because I'm saving you. Don't confuse removal with rejection. Don't assume that just because someone left, that God has forsaken you. No, friend. It might be the clearest sign that He's with you. He's guarding you. He's preserving your calling. The Bible says in Proverbs 13:20, who walks with the wise grows wise, but a companion of fools suffers harm. It doesn't say the fool gets harmed. It says the one walking with the fool does. That means your destiny can suffer, not because of what you did wrong, but because of who you walked with. Jesus Himself had moments of separation. When He was going to raise a little girl from the dead in Mark chapter 5, He didn't take the crowd. He only allowed Peter, James, and John to come with Him. Why? Because not everyone has the faith to witness resurrection. Some people will speak death over your calling. Some will laugh at your dreams. Some will sabotage the miracles God is preparing in secret. And God knows it. So I want to encourage you today, if someone has walked away from your life, if God has closed a door, if you feel alone after trusting someone deeply, don't be discouraged. It might just be divine protection. That friend may have meant you no harm, but God saw that they were distracting you from prayer. That relationship may have seemed perfect, but God saw that it would compromise your calling 5 years from now. He removes because He loves. He separates because He saves. And when God protects your purpose, He does it with the same hands that formed you, the same voice that called you, the same heart that sent His Son to the cross for you. His pruning is always purposeful. His silence is never empty. Trust Him, even when it hurts, even when you don't understand. Because when God removes someone from your life, He's not subtracting. He's safeguarding the very thing you were created for. Let Him protect your purpose. Let Him be God. And in time, you'll see, He never takes anything unless He plans to give you something greater. There are seasons in life when God allows certain people to walk away. Not because you did anything wrong, and not because they were necessarily bad, but because God is doing a deeper work in you. One of the hardest truths we must come to accept is this: sometimes God removes people not to break your heart, but to build your faith. We often associate spiritual growth with blessing, with peace, with everything going right. But in reality, God often does His most powerful work in the seasons of loss. It's when things are stripped away, when the noise dies down, when the distractions are gone, that we finally start to hear His voice clearly. You see, faith doesn't grow in comfort. It grows in fire. Faith doesn't develop when everything is predictable and familiar. No, it grows when we have no choice but to lean on God. And many times, that growth begins with separation. When God removes people, situations, or dependencies that we have come to rely on more than we rely on Him. There may be someone listening today who is wondering why a relationship suddenly ended. You're asking, God, why would you allow this? Why would you let someone I loved so much walk away from me? Friend, I don't have all the answers, but I can tell you this: if God allowed it, He intends to use it. And often, the first step towards stronger faith is removing the things that keep us weak. Sometimes we place our trust in people more than in the Lord. We lean on friends. We depend on mentors. We anchor our identity in who we are to someone else. And slowly, without realizing it, our faith begins to shift from Christ to comfort, from the cross to companionship. So God, in His loving discipline, begins to pull those supports away, not to leave us empty, but to show us what it truly means to walk by faith and not by sight. The Apostle Peter knew this firsthand. He had walked with Jesus, seen the miracles, felt the thrill of being near the Messiah. But Jesus told him that He would deny Him 3 times before the rooster crowed. And Peter did. That moment of loss, the breaking of his pride, the shattering of his self-image, was the beginning of Peter's transformation. He was being refined. And what came out of that painful separation? A man of unshakable faith who would go on to lead the early church. The Bible says in 1 Peter G:67, though now for a little while you may have to suffer grief in all kinds of trials, these have come so that the proven genuineness of your faith, of greater worth than gold, which perishes even though refined by fire, may result in praise, glory, and honor when Jesus Christ is revealed. Do you hear that? Refined by fire. Your faith is being purified, just like gold, so that it might shine brighter and last longer. Gold doesn't become pure on its own. It has to be put through the heat. And so it is with faith. The removal of people, the closing of doors, the silence in the midnight hour. These are not signs that God has abandoned you. They are signs that He's working deeply in you. Faith that is never tested can never be trusted. You will never know that God is all you until God is all you have. And when you find yourself standing alone, stripped of the people you leaned on, and you still find yourself standing. Not because of your strength, but because of His. That's when you know your faith is real. You may feel like God is taking people out of your life, but what He's really doing is taking you deeper. He's teaching you to pray when no one's watching. He's teaching you to worship when there's no band playing. He's teaching you to trust Him when there's no applause, no affirmation, and no backup plan. Sometimes, when your faith is weak, God removes what's easy so you can discover what's eternal. He removes what's visible so you can trust in the invisible. And when you come out of that refining season, you'll find yourself walking stronger, praying harder, believing deeper. So if you're in a season of loss, don't curse it. Don't run from it. Let it refine you. Let it press you into the heart of God. Because on the other side of that fire is something more precious than gold in a faith that cannot be shaken, and a God who has never left your side. There are times when God will begin to break things in your life that you never thought He would touch. Friendships you valued, relationships you clung to, connections you cherished deeply, and you wonder why. You cry out, Lord, why would you take this person from me? They were close to my heart. But as painful as it may be, God sometimes removes people because the bond between you and them has become an unholy attachment. One that is pulling you away from Him instead of drawing you closer. We were created to be in relationship, yes, but not every relationship is from God. Not every connection is healthy. Some are built on lust instead of love. Some are grounded in insecurity rather than Christ. Some are rooted in fear, manipulation, control, or compromise. And when God sees those bonds forming chains around your soul, He will lovingly, and sometimes abruptly, begin to sever them. The Bible tells in 2 Corinthians 6:14, do not be unequally yoked with unbelievers. For what partnership has righteousness with lawlessness? Or what fellowship has light with darkness? That verse is not just about marriage. It's about alignment. It's about influence. It's about spiritual direction. When you're yoked to someone, emotionally, romantically, or even closely in friendship, you start to move at their pace. You start to go where they go. And if they're not following Christ, sooner or later, you're not either. God sees what these attachments are doing to your spirit. He sees when someone is pulling you back into habits you had already surrendered. He sees when someone is making you compromise your values just to keep their affection. He sees when you're placing someone else in the center of your life, a place only He should occupy. And so, out of mercy, not judgment, He begins to tear it down. It may come in the form of a breakup, a betrayal, a sudden silence, and you're left wondering what went wrong. But from heaven's perspective, something was going right, because God was rescuing you from a relationship that was never bring you into the fullness of your calling. Think of Samson, a man anointed by God, chosen from birth, filled with supernatural strength. But his heart was attached to Delilah, a woman who did not fear God and was used by the enemy to bring him down. God had warned him. The Spirit had nudged him. But he stayed and he paid the price. His attachment cost him his strength, his freedom, and for a time, even his sight. And yet, even in his brokenness, God redeemed him. Why? Because when you turn back to God, when you let go of what He's trying to remove, He begins to restore what you've lost. There may be a Delilah in your life, not necessarily a person of obvious evil, but someone who over time is draining your spiritual strength. You pray less. You doubt more. You feel distant from God and closer to sin. That is not love. That is bondage. And our God is in the business of breaking chains. Don't cling to what God is cutting. Don't try to resurrect what he has already buried. Sometimes the most loving thing can do is let something fall apart so you can fall into his arms again. God is not trying to hurt you. He's trying to heal you. But he cannot heal what you continue to hold outside of his will. Some of you are delaying your next blessing because you refuse to release the last attachment. You're asking God to bless a relationship he never ordained. You're asking him to give peace to a connection he knows is corrupting your soul. And his answer, though hard to hear, is no. Not because he doesn't love you, but because he loves you too much to let you settle for less than his best. When God breaks an unholy attachment, it's not rejection. It's redirection. He's leading you back to himself. He's setting you apart. He's preparing you for something sacred. So let him remove it. Let him cleanse your heart. And trust that what he removes, he can always replace with something pure, holy, and eternal. You were never meant to be bound. You were meant to be free. And whom the Son sets free is free indeed. One of the most difficult lessons in the Christian life is learning to let go. Letting go of people we once loved. Letting go of friendships we thought would last forever. Letting go of relationships that felt like destiny. But often, when God takes someone out of your life, it isn't because he's punishing you. It's because he's preparing you. Making space for something greater, something better, something aligned with his purpose for your life. We serve a God who sees the end from the beginning. He knows what lies ahead when we can barely see past today. He knows the influence others will have on your heart. He knows the direction your life will take if certain people stay. And so, in his infinite wisdom, he allows some people to leave, not to diminish you, but to develop you. Not to empty your life, but to make room for the people who will walk with you into your God-given future. Many of us cry out to God for breakthrough, for growth, for purpose. But when he begins to answer that prayer, the first thing he often does is subtract. He starts clearing out what? And who? Doesn't belong in the next chapter. And that clearing process can be painful. You may feel abandoned, forgotten, or misunderstood. But God is never careless with his pruning. Every person he removes is a step towards something he wants to build in your life. Remember Gideon. In Judges 7, Gideon had an army of 32,000 men, but God said, that's too many. He reduced it to 10,000. Then God said again, still too many. Finally, Gideon was left with just 300 men. Why? Because God wanted the victory to come from him, not from human strength. He had to remove the wrong people. People who were fearful, unfocused, or not committed. So that Gideon could win with the right people. That's how God works. When he removes, it's always with purpose. He may close a door, end a friendship, or pull you away from a crowd, not because they were all bad, but because they weren't meant to build what God is calling you to. God is not just interested in who walks with you now. He's interested in who can stand with you in the fire, who will pray with you through the storm, who will sharpen you and strengthen your faith. Sometimes the wrong people are simply in the way of the right people. As long as your heart is tied to what's familiar, you'll struggle to receive what's faithful. You can't keep your arms full of yesterday and expect to embrace God's tomorrow. That's why the book of Isaiah says, behold, I will do a new thing, do you not perceive it? Before God does a new thing around you, He often does a new thing within you. And that begins by letting go. I've spoken to people who said, I thought I lost everything. My marriage went group, my job. But then, in that quiet space, God sent someone new. Someone who spoke life into me. Someone who lifted my arms when I was weary. Someone who challenged me to be better. That's what God does. He removes so He can replace. He clears space so He can plant something will grow. But here's the true thing. If God didn't remove the wrong ones, you'd never recognize the right ones. Some of you are still holding on to people God already walked out. You're asking Him to bless what He's already broken. You're waiting on someone to return when heaven has already released them. Don't confuse delay with destiny. If they left and God didn't bring them back, then let them go. The right people will come. Not always quickly. Not always easily. But when they do, you'll see why God had to make space. You'll see why the heartbreak was necessary. You'll understand that His no was not rejection. It was protection and preparation for something better. So take heart. Your loneliness is not the end of the story. Your emptiness is not the final chapter. Trust the author. He's writing something far beyond what you can see right now. And when the right people come, the ones who speak truth, who build your faith, who challenge your growth, you'll thank God for every closed door that made room for them to walk through the right one. Because what God removes, He always replaces. And what He replaces, He blesses.